My father told his servants, go and kill the fatted calf, and let us all be merry, for my son's come home at last. I think I'll go back home. I think I'll go back home. I believe I'll go back home and acknowledge I've done wrong. Well, when I left my father's house, I was supplied. I made a mistake and I did wrong. Now I'm dissatisfied. I think I'll go back home. I think I'll go back home. I believe I'll go back home and acknowledge I've done wrong. What have I gained by sin, he said, but hunger, grief, and fear? My father's house abounds in wealth, and I'm a starving here. I'll go back to my father's house. I'll fall down on my face, saying I'm unworthy to be called your child. I'll just take a servant's place. I think I'll go back home.
Okay. What's up, Savage? How you doing, bud? All right. Started with you. Doing good, man. Hot. I'm burning up. Roasting. It's hot up. You're not here? Okay. I didn't want you to be. You need to be. You need to be here. Lord knows you need it. Lord knows you need it. Are you guys coming to movie night after this? Coming up, right? Well, yeah, I got you in the sub Discord now. I expect you guys there. That's the same time as me. Just all right, a couple more minutes and we'll get started, guys. I want to give it a couple more minutes. It's gonna be kind of a long one, so try to get started a bit quicker than what I do. And about the 66 one. May be able to get through it kind of quick, but I want to make sure I have plenty of time just in case. Got another 40 seconds. What 2 seconds? Then we're going to get started. All right, 15 seconds. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started. So coming into this week, we're getting into Matthew chapter 27. This is going to deal with basically the whole point of Jesus up from the time that he got captured up through his crucifixion and almost right into. So this is kind of a big chapter. We may be able to get through it fairly quick. I don't know. But last week, what we were talking about, we came into where Jesus went into the garden and was praying. He left most of his disciples. He left 9 of them outside the garden. Took 3 inside the garden to pray with him. That was the 3 considered his inner circle. He took them into the garden with him to take them in there to pray with him. While he was in there praying, we know he prayed for at least 3 hours because he would go in, pray for an hour, and come back out. Find the 3 disciples that he took with him, sleep instead of praying up and praying with him like he asked them to do. And finally, that 3rd one, when he came out and he's found them asleep, he just told them to sleep on because the hour was at hand, the time for the Son of Man to be betrayed and taken. So when he come back out of the garden after those few hours of praying, that's when the soldiers came. Judas had brought them down, and he told them, he said, the one who I kissed on the cheek, the one that you're looking for, that's the Jesus you're after. And we talked about last week how common the kiss on the cheek was. It wasn't like Judas's actions stuck out to anybody as a moment of betrayal. It wouldn't be like if we come up today, our main our main way to greet somebody here is a handshake. You wake up, you walk up, shake their hand. That's a greeting. To them, the kiss on the cheek was a handshake, was a good sturdy handshake. So it wasn't uncommon. It wasn't anything weird or out of place for Judas to walk up, greet Jesus, and kiss him on the cheek. It was just the way that Judas would use to signify to them the one that I walk up to first and kiss on the cheek, this is the one you want. He made sure that he went straight for Jesus, looked at him, kissed him on the cheek to signify that was who they wanted. That was the Christ that they wanted to take. So he got that ready. He went, kissed him on the cheek, identified him, and they took Jesus at that point. Where we're at now is they had taken Jesus, they had got him back. He went before the Sanhedrin, and they had found him guilty. Falsely accused him of being guilty of blasphemy. And this is where we're at. That's where we're up into this point. So after that, when the Jews tried him in their own court and found him guilty, the process that had to happen, because the Roman Empire had taken Israel, or taken Jerusalem, they had conquered the land, and they had created the law, or made the law that says that the Jews were not allowed to kill anybody. That what they had to do was, if they were found guilty in a court, in order to have them to put to death, they had to go before the governor of the land, and the governor of the land had to decide the fate. Basically, had a second trial in front of him. He would decide the fate, and he would determine whether they were put to death or not. So where we're at is, the Jews themselves had decided that he was guilty of blasphemy, and that was a charge punishable by death. So now it was time to take Jesus before Pilate, accuse him, put forth their proof, and get Judas to put him to, or get Pilate to put him to death. So on chapter 27, it starts with this. It says, when the morning was come, and all the chief priests and elders of the people took counsel against Jesus to put him to death, when they had bound him, they led him away and delivered him to Pontius Pilate, the governor. Then Judas, which had betrayed him, when he saw that he was condemned, repented himself, and brought again the 30 pieces of silver to the chief priests and elders, saying, I have sinned in that I have betrayed the innocent blood. And they said, what is that to us? See thou to that. And he cast down the pieces of silver in the temple, and departed, and went and hanged himself. The chief priest took the silver pieces and said, it is not lawful for to put them into the treasury, because it is the price of blood. And he took counsel and bought them with the potter's field, and bury strangers in. Wherefore that field was called the field of blood unto this day. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, and they took the 30 pieces of silver, the price of him that was valued, whom they of the children of Israel did value, and gave them for the potter's field as the Lord appointed me. So it was actually prophesied that this would happen. So this wasn't, even this part was prophesied that it would happen. So Judas, he tries to return the 30 pieces of silver. They won't take it. He throws it down at the feet in the temple. They won't put it into the treasury. They won't put it in the temple money, or in the church money, because that money has blood on it. It's the blood of Jesus Christ. So they refused to do so. And so it was taken and used to buy the potter's field. So now we get where Jesus comes before Pilate. It says, and Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, saying, art thou the king of the Jews? And Jesus said unto him, thou sayest. Jesus does not say a whole lot. He's not very talkative. He doesn't need to say a whole lot. They say, aren't you the king of the Jews? And he said, hey, more or less, you said it. He's not disagreeing, but he's not standing up there boastfully and sticking his chest and say, yeah, I'm king of the Jews. Yeah. He's not doing anything. He just says, hey, you said it. That's what they're accusing me of. Here we are, more or less. It says, and when he was accused of the chief priests and the elders, he answered nothing. He didn't say anything. He doesn't need to say anything. The chief priests, the elders, all of those, deep down, they know exactly who he is. They know what he can do, and they're aware of him. The problem is, with knowing that, he threatens their way of life. He threatens their lifestyle. They have taken the house of God and turned it into a place for them to make money and live the finer life, having better things, being seen as authoritative figures, put on pedestals. And Jesus coming along and teaching his gospel of the kingdom does away with all of that and does away with their way of life. It takes the importance of them individually out. They were important because whenever a sacrifice or worship was needed done, you had to go to them and they had to go to God for you. Essentially, they were the middleman. Without the middleman, you wasn't talking to God. Jesus comes along. Jesus becomes the high priest and the sacrifice and takes out the need for that middleman. We no longer have to go through a priest to talk to God. We're able to just kneel down and pray and talk to him directly and him hear our prayer. So they're no longer as important as what they used to be when it comes to talking to God. They knew this. It did away with their way of life. They didn't like it. That's why it was their purpose. They started to seek out to get rid of him. They couldn't take him in public. They couldn't bump him off on their own or any of that stuff. So now their last option was, we got to go the legal way, or try to go through proper channels, but we've got to be able to hang him out to dry so that he can be crucified. Knowing that he is teaching that he is the Son of God, declaring he is God is blasphemous, which is by their culture, by their faith, reason enough, blasphemy is reason enough to be put to death. So all they had to do was hang him on that. And that was the deal. That's what they did whenever they took him before the Sanhedrin. And now before Pilate, that's what they're doing there as well. So it says, then said Pilate unto him, hearest thou not how many things they witness against thee? And he answered him to never a word, insomuch that the governor marveled greatly. So he still never, knowing they're throwing out these accusations, knowing what they're saying, he still never said anything. He just stood there, letting them make their accusations, let them say what they wanted to say, and just did nothing. He wasn't concerned. He knew what was to take place. He knew what was to happen. He knew his role, and he was good with it. He agreed to do it. So, I never yawn all day until I do this. So now, what we see is the Jews had all declared him to be guilty. Pilate, read in other gospels, that Pilate actually did not find anything wrong with Jesus. He found no fault in him, especially not anything to be considered for him to be put to death or crucified. But the Jews wouldn't let it go. So he said, I wash my hands of him. You guys can do what you want. They screamed to crucify him. He told the soldiers, do as they wish. And he told them the blood of Jesus will be on their hands. So what happened here every year at this time at the feast, the governor was wanting to release unto the people of prison whom they would. So he would take the prisoners that were locked up, and he would give them the opportunity to free one of those prisoners back to the people, so they could kind of vote or cheer on who they would want to be free. If there was somebody they wanted to be freed, they could, and Pilate freed that prisoner. So what do we have here is Pilate took Jesus. He didn't find him guilty enough to be put to death. He really didn't feel like there was enough evidence for Jesus to be put to death. So what he done was he had Jesus whipped. This is where the cat o' nine tails, when he was beaten beyond recognition, he had him whipped in punishment for the crime, which he thought was more than suiting. He really didn't believe he deserved that, but he thought, if I do this, maybe this will be enough for them to back off. We'll see this in other gospels, but this was kind of, he just really didn't find fault for Jesus crucified, but they kept pushing for it. So he did that in hoping that they would be satisfied with that punishment. So at the feast, he would release them to the people prisoner whom they would, and they had then a notable prisoner called Barabbas. Barabbas was a dirt dog. He was a murderer. He was a thief. He was worthless. He was no good for society. And Pilate thought he was doing something kind of smart here. He thought he was kind of rigging the option here. So he said, therefore, when they were gathered together, Pilate said unto them, whom will ye that I release unto you, Barabbas or Jesus, which is called Christ? would you rather me release Barabbas, the scourge of the earth, the worst human being possible in your of your people, or Jesus, who the worst he's done is said he's the Son of God, and he's been beaten half to death. He's not physically harmed anybody or anything like that. He's not done anything against anybody or any of that stuff. Everything has been verbal. So none of that. Who would you have me to release to you? Because he really thought at this point they would say Jesus. Just release Jesus, keep Barabbas in jail. And he says, for he knew that for envy they had delivered him. And when he was set down on the judgment seat, his wife sent unto him, saying, have thou nothing to do with that just man, for I have suffered many things this day in a dream because of him. But the chief priests and elders persuaded the multitude that they should ask Barabbas and destroy Jesus. His wife even had a vision that night, had a dream, saying, don't be involved with what's happening with this man Jesus, because it's not good. So she was even telling Pilate, don't get involved in this. Don't be a part of this. And he did everything he could to try to stay out of it. But they asked for Barabbas and wanted to destroy Jesus. He says, the governor answered and said unto them, whether of the twain will ye that I release unto you? And they said, Barabbas. Pilate said unto them, what shall I do then with Jesus, which is called Christ? They all say unto him, let him be crucified. And the governor said, why? What evil hath he done? But they cried out the more, and saying, let him be crucified. When Pilate saw that he could prevail nothing, but rather a tumult was made, he took water and washed his hands before the multitude, saying, I am innocent of the blood of this just person. See to it. See, he knew that he was not guilty, and that he was not guilty unto death of anything. Nothing to what he done. All their accusations and all that stuff, essentially just hearsay and accusations. That's it. There was no evidence of anything. Nothing like what they had on Barabbas, which was solid evidence of why he was locked up. But he gave them the option which prisoner to release. They picked one they wanted to release. He said, look, I wash my hands of this. His blood is on your hands. He's not on mine. And then he said, see to it. Go ahead. Then answered all the people and said, his blood be on us and our children. They took responsibility. They literally agreed to take responsibility for this and take the blood of Jesus on them and their children, which was dumb. Very dumb. So at that point, they released Barabbas unto them, and when he had scourged Jesus, he delivered him up to be crucified. Now, the Roman soldiers are cruel. They're having fun with this. Pilate had nothing to do with what happens from here on out. He washed his hands. He was not involved in any of this. This is all strictly on the Roman soldiers and the Jews that decided to mock and everything else. So it says, then the soldiers of the governor took Jesus into the common hall and gathered in him the whole band of soldiers, and they stripped him and put on him a scarlet robe. And when they had platted a crown of thorns, they put it on his head and a reed in his right hand, and they bowed the knee before him and mocked him, saying, Hail, King of the Jews. And they spit upon him and took the reed and smote him on the head. And after that they had mocked him, they took the robe off from him and put his own raiment on him and led him away to crucify him. As they came out, they found a man of Cyrene, Simon by name. Him they compelled to bear the cross. And when they were come unto a place called Golgotha, that is to say, a place of a skull, they gave him vinegar to drink mingled with gall. And when he had tasted thereof, he would not drink. So, gall was actually kind of like a painkiller that they would give the people when they were hanging on the cross to help dull and numb the pain. And make things a little more bearable to be able to hang on the cross better. Also, what it done was it relaxed the body quite a bit. I don't know if you guys have ever looked into this or heard anybody talk about this, but a crucifixion, everybody puts a picture of, the nails in the hands and feet hanging on the cross. They just assumed that hanging there was just easy, and that there was, other than the piercings through the feet and hands, that everything was good. But that was not the case. Crucifixions were brutal. Hanging on the cross was absolutely brutal. Not only was it the nails through the arms, through your hands and feet, and that was basically what was holding you up, but the way that they would do it, your arms out and stuff like that, that the weight of the body would come down with the arms spread out, it actually made it harder to breathe. So a lot of times at a certain point, in order to be able to take a breath in, they would have to try and lift themselves up to get enough room to be able to take a breath in. And then they would have to slouch down to release that breath. So you were using the nails through your hands to lift yourself up, to be able to give your ribs and lungs room to move and expand, to be able to take the breath in. And then you would kind of, the weight would gather, and whenever you exhale and drop down, and it would hang more. I don't know. It's kind of like if you've ever done like a chin up or anything like that, or pull ups. You come up, you hold it, you're okay. But when you come back down, trying to come back up, that momentum back up, it gets harder and harder every single time. And if you wanted to breathe, you had to do this. So suffocation was very common in this. That it was painful trying to just breathe. It wasn't just hanging on the cross. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very few people think that deep into it, but it wasn't just hanging on the cross. It's not you're just laying there and your body is properly propped up and it's easy to breathe and you're just chilling there until you pass away from the pain or whatever. That's not the case. It was a struggle and a fight to breathe. And when they would give you this gall, when they give you that painkiller, it relaxed the muscles and everything as well, which made it that much harder to be able to breathe. It did help take care of the pain, but it made it harder. It's like taking a giant muscle relaxer. It made it harder to be able to get yourself to breathe. This was torture. This was a great torture tactic, and trying to torture somebody unto the point of death. This was excellent. So it was not just simply just hanging there until you passed away, until you starved to death or anything like that. This was excruciating. This was horrible. And you got to imagine the beating that Jesus took beforehand and what he experienced, because he was whipped within an inch of his life, what would have been the life of a normal man, literally. So he was dealing with all of this while hanging there. And he refused to take the gall because he refused to let the pain be dull. He wanted the objective, Christ being on the cross, was to take the sting of death, all of the pain, sin, and all of the pain and aches that go with it, every bit of it. He was to be clear-minded and complete in himself and bear all of that himself on that cross. There was to be nothing that would show anything else. Some of them show him have the nails through the wrist with chains wrapped around too, where it shows holding chains to lift up. I never understood which one. What? Not so much chain, but rope. I think they would they would wrap, but it was kind of loosely. The biggest thing that held it there were the nails, the spikes, but it would kind of help hold more or less the wrist back to the wood. So they weren't necessarily to help. All the weight was still on the hands. It was still the nails in the hands. So you're still bearing all your weight there. When you went to lift up, it was still using that. And you got to remember, going through the hand, that you're going to the center of the hand where the nerves and tendons run through your hand. So Um, Anybody that's ever had carpal tunnel, they put a slit right here, they go, and then they cut the tendon that stretches across uh, to relieve the pain. Imagine a spike going through the center of all of that, getting those tendons just not surgically, precision through, but just driven through with the hammer, just tearing through the bone and the cartilage stuff in your hand and all the ligaments, tendons, stuff that you have in there. And you're trying to move your hand, you're trying to use your hand as strength, your strength to lift yourself up to take that breath. It makes it very impossible. But Jesus had to make sure that he took the entire pain. There was nothing ever dull. He had to endure the pain and have the full pain to be able to take and conquer it so that we no longer have to deal with that pain. So that's the full sting, full pain of death that he took. So it says, and they crucified him and parted his garments, casting lots, that it might be fulfilled, what was spoken by the prophet, that they parted my garments among them, and upon my vesture did they cast lots. And sitting down, they watched him there, and set up over his head his accusation written, "This is Jesus, the King of the Jews." Then were there two thieves crucified with him, one on the right hand and the other on the left. And they that passed by reviled him, wagging their head. Now, Matthew doesn't cover a whole lot of this, and you're welcome for the clarification, Rebel. Matthew doesn't really cover a whole lot of this. We're going to see a lot more coverage in the other three Gospels, covering everything that happens up right before and up to the cross, and even on the cross and stuff. So you're going to get four different perspectives. Some are going to have a little more detail. Some are going to cover other details that ones like Matthew do not cover. So it says, saying that thou destroyest the temple and buildest it in 3 days, save thyself. If thou be the Son of God, come down from the cross. So, ad BRB. I wish I could turn the ads on Twitch off. I really do. It says, in saying thou destroyest the temple and build it in 3 days and save thyself, if thou be the Son of God, come down from the cross. Likewise, also the chief priests, mocking him with the scribes and elders, said, he saves others, himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. And they're still mocking him, but what they did not understand, what they don't understand, is the fact that his purpose was not to come and save himself from the cross, but his purpose was to come and die on the cross and save us from the world of sin. So they still don't want to recognize who he is and understand his full purpose for being here. They just continue to mock and be ignorant with what they're doing and what they're saying. So, he said, he himself he cannot save. If he be the King of Israel, let him now come down from the cross, and we will believe him. He trusted in God, let him deliver him now, if he will have him, for he said, I am the Son of God. The thieves also, which were crucified of him, cast the same in his teeth. So at first, the thieves were even mocking Christ, both sides, left and right. And we'll see more about that a little bit later on. So we continue. It says, and now from 6th hour there was darkness over all the land unto the 9th hour. And about the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, saying, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. This is to say, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? And there's a lot on this. There's a lot of people that talk about this. And I hear some get it right, and I hear a lot get it wrong. A lot of people don't understand what is being said here. But what we're looking at, he says, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? This is the most human thing that you ever see from Jesus. This is the most earthly thing that you will ever see or hear from him. And there is a purpose for it. At this point, at the 9th hour, this is where Jesus dies. This is the moment where, though, and the Bible says this, though no sin entered in, he became sin and died for you and I. This is the moment where he took sin. He wore sin. And the Bible tells you that God cannot look upon sin. God had to turn his face. He could not look upon Christ right now because he had on the full coat of sin. He had to die with it and take it and bear it so that it could be conquered when he rose from the dead. So, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? God did not forsake him, but God had to turn his face away because he could not look upon sin. Jesus became that sin, the sin of the entire world. Any sin in this world that anybody could think of, Christ became that. Though it never entered in, man today lives with sin on the inside. Christ died with sin on him, not in him. It's a huge difference. So, it says, some of them that stood there, when they heard that, said, this man calleth for Elias. And straightway one of them ran and took a sponge, filled it with vinegar, and put it on a reed, and gave him to drink. And the rest said, let be, let us see whether Elias will come to save him. Jesus, when he had cried again with a loud voice, yielded up the ghost. That's when he died. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent, and the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose. When it talks about the veil rent, that is talking about the veil that separates in the temple, the rest of the temple from the holiest of holies, the place that only the priests were able to go before this moment. The only ones allowed to step behind that veil were the priests. Now, Jesus had come and died for our sins, and he made it so that we no longer have to rely on the priest to go to the holiest of holies for us. We can now come boldly to the throne of grace ourselves and talk to God directly, individually. So that veil was no longer needed. Christ did away with that. So that's why it says the veil was rent. That's the veil that it's talking about. It's the veil in the temple. It was rent from top to bottom, tore completely in two. So there's nothing there. The earth did quake, the rocks rent, the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose and came out of the graves after his resurrection and went into the holy city and appeared unto many. Now, when the centurion and they that were with him watched Jesus, saw the earthquake and those things which were done, they feared greatly, saying, truly, this was the Son of God. When they seen everything that happened, when they seen all the occurrence, when they seen the earthquake and all this stuff, they then realized who it was that they just crucified. It says, many women were there beholding afar, which followed Jesus from Galilee, ministering unto him, and among which was Mary Magdalene, and Mary, the mother of James and Joseph, and the mother of Zebedee's children. Now, when the even was come, there came a rich man of Arimathea named Joseph, who also himself was Jesus' disciple. He went to Pilate and begged the body of Jesus. Then Pilate commanded that the body to be delivered. So what we're seeing here in the even, I don't know if you guys know this or not, or familiar or aware, but the Jewish days back then, I don't know if they still go by this way or not, to be honest with you, but their day started the night before. So essentially, I believe it was 6 p.m. was the first part of the next day. So their days went from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. That was their 24-hour period. So what was coming up was the Sabbath day. The next day was the Sabbath, and there was to be no work done on the Sabbath. So what had to happen was Jesus had to be taken down off the cross, prepared, and put in a tomb before the Sabbath happened, because nobody, especially Jew, was to be hanging on the crosses or on the crucifixion on the Sabbath. They all had to be down and off. That's why, we'll read about that part on some of the later Gospels. I don't want to get into too much, but But they had to get the body down off. That's why Joseph of Arimathea came and asked for the body of Jesus. He wanted to hurry up and get him into the tomb so that he could have a respectable Jewish burial. It was very important for what was going on. We remember reading the other a week or two ago about the woman with the alabaster box of oil that came in and anointed him from head to foot, which was very important. He said, "This she does for my burial." That was the preparation of the body for the burial, normally done after the death. But because of the way he was going to die, it was done before him. So he had already been anointed from head to toe. In that sense, the body had that much preparation. Now, essentially, what they needed to do was just wrap him up and get him in the tomb for everything to go the way that Jewish custom would allow. So he went to Pilate, asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate commanded the body be delivered. And when Joseph had taken the body, he wrapped it in a clean linen cloth and laid it in his own new tomb, which he had hewn out of the rock. And he rolled a great stone to the door of the sepulchre and departed. And there was Mary Magdalene and the other Mary sitting over against the sepulchre. Now, the next day that followed, the day of the preparation, the chief priests and Pharisees came together unto Pilate, saying, "Sir, remember that the deceiver said that while he was yet alive, after 3 days, I will rise again." Jesus told him, "I will lay this body down, but in 3 days I will raise it again." Their word is, what they're saying here is the problem is his followers are going to go take his body from the tomb, remove it and hide it, and swear that he rose again, and nobody will be able to argue any different because the body won't be there. The body will disappear. So they're like, this can't happen. We need to prevent this from happening. So he said, while he was alive, he said, after 3 days I will rise again. Command therefore that the sepulchre be made sure until the 3rd day, lest his disciples come by night, steal him away, and say unto the people, he is risen from the dead. So the last error shall be worse than the first. Because if they can go and say, well, he's risen from the dead, his people believe it, they have hope again. Right now, a lot of their hope is squashed because Jesus was crucified when they didn't think that it was able to kill the Son of God. So they're like, you need to go set soldiers at the tomb, set them there so that they can't take the body, hide it at night, and swear that he rose again. This will defeat that, because if they manage this, it's going to be bad. So Pilate said to them, "Ye have a watch, go your way, make it as sure as ye can." And so they went and made the sepulchre sure, sealing the stone and setting a watch. So that's where we're going to stop this week. They have crucified Jesus. They take him down. They put him in the tomb. The Jews were worried that the followers would take the body and swear that he rose again when the body was missing. So they had Pilate put soldiers at the tomb to make sure nobody took the body, and had it to declare that he had risen. Now, next week, we're going to look into a little bit further into that. We're going to look at, they do declare that he is risen, but we're going to see it's going to play out a lot different. And then we're going to see what happens to the soldiers and how that plays out with them. So, but we'll get into that next week. We'll look at that then. That's going to be it for this week. Tune back in next week. Don't forget, every Monday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're here doing the Bible study. We're live on 5 platforms. We're Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Twitch, Kick. We're live on 5 platforms. I'm broadcasting the Discord and the Bible study channel, voice chat channel. I do screen share so you can see the verses that we're reading. You can be a part of this, and you can be come in and join on any of those platforms, anywhere there if you want to. Feel free. You're good to comment. I'll do my best to read the comments that I can as I go through. But we're here every Monday. So come back, be with us next week, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I don't know what time zones a lot of you guys are in. So I don't know how that translates for you guys, but 6 p.m. EST, we will be here. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I appreciate y'all. And I will see you guys next week. Guys, if you are watching and you are a sub, to any of the channels, if you're a sub to TikTok, Twitch, Kick, TikTok, Twitch, or Kick, right? there another one? Or Facebook if you're subbed to any of those. Well, YouTube subs don't count because subs I'm not monetized over there. But if you're subbed to any of those other 4, let me know if I can get you added into the sub chat. And we're doing movie night tonight. Tonight we're watching Lilo and Stitch. So 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay. But we're going to watch Lilo and Stitch here in just a little bit. I'm going to try. I'm shooting for 7:30. If we can get everybody in, we'll start as close to 7:30 as possible. If it don't start till 8, that's fine. I'm not doing a stream tonight. The movie's the only thing we're doing. We're going to have some fun. Come in, get in the movie night voice chat. Just get in there and mute yourself. I'll play the movie in there. I will broadcast the movie live in there. You guys can watch there. It's kind of like a pastor's family night. I'm here with the fam. We're going to watch it. You guys bring your family, come in and watch it. We'll have a good time. But I appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good night and God bless. Okay.
Well, when I left my father's house, I was supplied. I made a mistake and I did wrong.